here with Evolve and Elevate with Errica on tonight. We are finally in the space. The enemy was trying his best for us not to be great, but we are here. So we're so thankful to be with you all again on this Monday night. Tonight, we have a hot topic tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the spirit of offense, but most of all, we're talking about how to accurate in your God voice. So tonight, offended because I listen to God and not you. So it is always a pleasure to have with me Miss Alicia Johnson from the 1212 community. My name is Errica Bishop from Evolve and Elevate with Errica, as well as Empowered to Prosper Coaching and Consulting. I am here to help those uncover, rediscover their power and their purpose through getting unstuck in their emotions, healing from past trauma so that they can move into their abundance and authenticity. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia so she can introduce herself to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Alicia Johnson, the creator of the 1212 community, where we are dedicated to helping everyone to recalibrate their lives to live 12 hours for God, 12 hours for man. We do that through a myriad of ways, one of being journaling through the process and understanding the power of provision in your life. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
So, as always, I'm so happy to have you here. And to all of our guests that are on tonight, please tag someone, please share, please like, please pick up the phone and call someone and say, get on either on YouTube, or if you're part of the 1212 community or the Shiro Society community, let them know that we're on live tonight because we're going to be talking about don't be offended because I listen to God and not you. So you're probably saying, well, where in the world did that topic come from? So if you were on last week, we were talking about recognizing how to shift in your new season. And we were also talking about how not to miss the shift and how to be obedient in the shift. And also about the obedience that comes with the things that are required because provision is a part of the shifting process. And you have to be in alignment with that. So out of that came the subject, don't be offended. Because oftentimes when we're in a circle or a group and people have watched us go through our process and our journey, their opinions, their suggestions, there are comments and conversations. But when you start moving to the beat of what God has required, your life has shifted differently because you're moving differently.
Right.
And sometimes there are some people, maybe not your friends, maybe the people that live next to you, but there are some people who get offended because they didn't have the say in what it is that you were supposed to do. So, Alicia, let's kind of dig into that a little bit. Why do people get offended?
Oh, why do people get offended? Y'all have well, I can tell you why. Before I understood this, why I would get offended when people would do things that I didn't think they should do because I had control issues. I had control issues. It was that simple. I wanted to, when people listen to you and people take your advice and do what you tell them to do, then that is a sense of power. That is a sense of authority. And if you thrive off of that, and if that is your personality, then that is a big driver for wanting people to do the things that you say do. And I think that as a parent, especially when you have children and things like that, you're conditioned to, tell your kids what to do, make sure they do it. And it's like you consider your children a reflection of you. And this is why, for me, this was so humbling for me because I used to parent through punishment. I used to parent to make sure that you gonna listen to me. If you don't, there will be a price to pay. And it became very exhausting, and I began to realize that I I control nothing. Alicia Johnson
Mhm.
controls absolutely nothing. And when I came to
Mhm.
that understanding, that's when God began to move me to a new level of understanding, which is radical obedience. With radical obedience, you are following heaven's instruction throughout the entire process. So I'm no longer responsible for the outcome. I am no longer
Mhm.
responsible for the outcome. But because of parenting, because of the conditioning from watching and listening to others who come before me, your children are a reflection of you. If they act like
Mm.
that, that means they don't have no home training. If they do this, honey, and I would fall for that stuff because I'm thinking that I've done something that is, how can I put it? That people are gonna look at me if my kids go out here and do something and act a fool. I'm not with them all the time. My
Mhm.
parents weren't with me all the time. So a lot of those decisions were my decisions.
Mhm.
Those were my actions. And
Mhm.
because of that upbringing, I had the mindset that I needed to control my children and make sure that they reflected on us well. And once I started to realize my children are two different individuals, I can't control them. I control nothing. I can't even control myself half of the time. And so once I let that go, I began to realize that that's the thing. People want to feel like they can control things because obviously, when you want to control other things, then that's an indicator that you're struggling with God.
Mm.
You're struggling somehow with your spiritual walk. You're struggling with something because you can only rise as high as you allow someone else to go. So if
Mhm.
you are keeping someone back because you're trying to control them, then that's an indicator that you're not willing to do all of the things that God tells you to do because you feel like God is trying to control you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you're stuck.
Tit for tat. Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, when I think about the spirit of offense, John Bevere
Hmm.
wrote an amazing
The
book
bait of
on offense,
Satan.
The Bait of Satan, honey. Oh God. And as a matter of fact, it's sitting right over here on my bookshelf because we just went through it. I think sometime about a year or two ago. Um, and it's amazing how offense is one of those things that we hold secretly because we don't get to wear it like an ingredient list that you see on a jar of food. If everybody had an ingredient list that we could wear on ourselves, what would we see? Would we see 10% offense, 20% jealousy, 100% humility? What would it really say?
Hmm.
And when you think about how quickly people can become offended, sometimes over the smallest things, and a lot of it lies in some form of insecurity, some form of negative experience or trauma that's related to some type of fear, rejection, or shame, the place of control. Um, and a little bit of the rebellious side because it's one of those things, especially when it comes to control, because I couldn't do this as a child. I'm going to over index over here and control this to exert my power because it's in another space of my life I felt powerless.
Hmm.
And And I know that we've talked about this before when we've been in situations where we stood up for ourselves and made our own decisions. And those people that kind of took a step back, like, oh, you making your own decision. And they're like, oh, we're doing that now. And it's a surprise to them when you start moving without someone else's command,
Mhm.
because you've grown from a place of people pleasing, you've grown from a place of your own insecurities and anxieties, and you start showing up differently. And then you start getting obedient to the Lord.
Mhm.
Then you start doing some stuff that you're not discussing those things with other people, and all of a sudden these grand things start happening in your life, and people trying to figure out, well, how, and then they surprise you got a relationship with God yourself. So let's kind of dig into when the obedience, the fruit out of the obedience started showing up as you were listening to your God voice more so than the other people around you.
Mm. Um, I would have to say it was in it all. It happened in like one area at a time. So it's almost like taking the training wheels off of a bike.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you have been used to being in that position all the time where you do, there's being offended and there is not wanting to offend people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was in that posture of I don't want to make anybody upset with me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to offend them. I don't want to make them feel bad. I don't want to. I was feeling bad all the time because I was trying to make other people feel good. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't one person, it was all people. I wanted everybody to feel comfortable. I wanted everyone to not be offended because of my decisions. I wanted to just go along to get along.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to realize that this isn't working very well for me, I got to do something different. And I never forget, this was so dumb when I think of in college, we had a little study group and we were all studying together and we studied. I can't even, it was a history or poli sci class, some class. And it was three or four of us studying together. And I got an A on the exam. And everybody else I was studying with, they got like a C or less. And I felt bad.
Hmm.
I felt bad because we all studied together, so we all should have done good.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I stopped trying so hard so we could all so they could feel okay about them. So we all average now.
Mm-hmm.
That was the dumbest thing I could have ever done in my life. And it carried on in my relationships. I would hold things like people would say things that would offend me, but because I wanted to keep the peace, I would never speak up. And what I started to realize is that at about 18 or 19 years old, I know exactly the point in my life when I literally started to fall asleep
Wow.
and to become numb to the world. And to start, it's almost like I went into this robotic phase.
Mm.
And I started to just do everything that people were telling me to do. You need to get a job now because you're older. You need to do this now. It's time to get a house. It's time to do this. It's time to do that. It wasn't until I was like 30, probably my mid 30s, when I started to wake back up again. I had fallen asleep for over 10, 15 years. Asleep. And what I mean by asleep is dead to what I knew I should have been doing. But then by the
Mm,
time I woke up, I've got all of this responsibility.
mhm,
I'm waking up now and I'm like, I got kids. I got a freaking house. I got a whole husband. I got a whole career. And to be honest, I was like, I don't want none of this. I don't want any of this. I didn't want any of it because I had been almost like what they say, hoodwinked and bamboozled.
mhm,
And that's when I was like, God, you got to show me how to turn this around. I don't even know what to do. God's like, you got to take your power back. And that's how it started. Little by little. Like, God was like, first of all, you got to be honest about the relationships. And the funny thing is that when Mike and I started talking, I started to realize Mike was just as miserable as me
wow.
because he fell asleep too. Fell asleep too. And you just get into these routines. Everybody's having babies now, so we might as well have one. Everybody's buying their house now, we might as well get one.
Mhm,
Everybody's doing this, might as well do that. And you know something is off when you start looking at statistics and they start talking about the average family and the 2.5 children. 2.5, really? And you gonna fall for that zero point 0.5 of a child, really?
mhm,
And when I started to realize at that point, I was like, I'm not doing this. People just not gonna like me. People not gonna like me, but I need to like myself.
mhm.
And little by little, I started to take my power back, speaking up, saying I was offending people left, right, front, and center. You want to go to dinner? You want to go on this trip with us? You want to no, Why not? I don't like that. I don't like them trips. You've gone for the last 10 years. I didn't like any one of them. I did not like anyone. I was doing stuff and I was at the point where I was with women that liked, they really wanted to be the happy homemaker. They
Right.
wanted to be the PTA mom. They wanted to be all of those things. And I pretended that I wanted to be those things too, but I was failing at them miserably. I was like, let me stop lying.
Mhm.
No, I don't want to go on a shopping trip with you. I don't like shopping. I was so happy when they came out. This whole new generation, I think I was just born too late. Like this online shopping, all of that, honey, that is for me. If I never have to set foot in another mall, I'll be okay. Grocery shopping. Do you know how much I hated grocery shopping? I got into coupon clipping because that's what all of the other moms did. Honey, I would mess up a grocery store line. Okay? I would shut that thing down. I got expired coupons. I'm picking up the wrong brand. I'm doing all of it because I'm like, once I started to think about me, I'll pay the extra. I don't care. When I started making decisions for myself, it did make sense to other people because you need to save that money. No, I don't want to save that money. Me driving around to 10 other stores to save 5 cents, it don't make sense to me. I'm not doing that here. Just take all my money. Just let me, I would buy a broom from Nordstrom's if I could. Just for the return policy.
Oh my God.
Girl, this one got me heated. I think I got some more forgiveness work to do. I'm like, whoo. I don't even know if I answered the whole question, but that's how it started. That's
You
just
did,
how.
you did. I know for me, when I came across the saying to thine own self be true,
Mm.
and I was like, well, what does that really mean? And to really sit and be at a place of truth with myself and to go just same way you did, to go through, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Yes, and all the times you complied and said yes, and to really be honest and finally say, you know what, I really don't like that.
Mm-mm.
No, I really don't want to. I remember the first time I, I came from a small family. Very small family. You could count my family members probably on on one hand. We come from a very small family. But my family that I was married into was a very large family. And they ate dinner together every single Sunday. And we talking 12, 13 people every Sunday. It's like everybody. And this particular time, I was like, I don't want to do it. Like,
Ruh roll.
yeah, I was like, I cook at my house for my family. I don't want to go over there. I want to eat at my house and take my Sunday afternoon nap. I don't want to go.
Was that the beginning of the end?
Ooh. So, it was one of those situations that I was the only person that wasn't there. So then you get the phone call. Why aren't you here? I don't want to be there.
You
You
not
need
feeling
to
well?
get here
You just
now. No, I'm not
I
coming.
feel fine.
No, I just don't want to come. I'm not coming. You know, and you feel like that this is this rebellious side that comes up in you, but it's really you standing up for you. And I stood my ground because it was one of those things. No, I'm not going to continue to do this, and I need to be home and get my rest. Y'all can be there, but I'm not going. And I sat in my chase lounge. I fixed my grape juice in my wine glass, grape juice in a wine glass, crossed my feet, and sat there. And I did not move because that's what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
But that was like, finally, like, girl, what took you so long? Finally, you said something. And then it leads to, okay, now you did this, and now you have peace. Then, when you start gaining that peace of really being truthful to yourself, you don't want to turn back.
You
And then,
can't.
then you start leaving a trail behind you of, no, I'm not going to do that. Nope, that's not for me. Nope.
That
My,
body count gets high.
yeah, I mean, and then you really start, well, you know what, and then you start saying stuff like, well, we just gonna have to agree to disagree. Like, this is where it's gonna be. I'm standing on what it is, the conviction that I have. And then people are looking at you like, she done lost her man. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with you today? Why are you acting like, no, this is what I have to say. I have a voice.
Mhm.
Even when you have to do it while you're shaking in your boots, you have a voice. And it's
Mhm.
not that you have to go through and tab the whole kitchen and show out and throw stuff around and all that kind of stuff. It's just about, this is what I need to do.
Mhm.
And then when God tells you, this is how I need you to move, that's the big part. So let's get into listening to your God voice. As you've had enough courage to say no to some of the simple things like, no, I don't want spaghetti, I want something else, or I don't want to go out to the movies, the small things,
Mhm.
listening and being obedient to your God voice
Mhm.
when it comes to those major decisions.
Mhm. That's where the homeless people taught me. Truth takes action. Truth does what needs to be done. And truth don't make a whole lot of noise.
Let's
When I
break that down for the people. Cause they see, I understand it because I'm in the community. Let's break that down for the people, especially the part when it said truth don't make a lot of noise. That's a good one right there. So let's break that down for the people.
Okay, let's set the scene. No, I was sitting at my desk and I needed to understand truth, the power of it. I had a decision to make, and I wanted to make sure I was hearing God right and I was making the right decision. So God said, "Get up." I'm at work. I worked in Georgetown at the time. It's like, "Get up and go." It's a canal in Georgetown, the CNO Canal. So God said, "Go outside." And I walked outside, and there is a homeless guy sitting on a bench, and he's jingling his change. Spare change for the homeless guy. Spare change for the homeless guy. And I go sit on the steps and I was like, what is this? I see this dude every day. What is he going to teach me about truth? Like, God, this is a waste of my time. God said, sit down and watch. So there's another homeless guy coming across the footbridge and crosses in front of the guy jingling the change. And he goes straight to the garbage can. He ruffles through the garbage can, pulls out a sandwich, he eats it, and puts the container back. Then he went back into the garbage can. He pulled out like a juice bottle, opened it, drank it, put it back. Then he laid down on the bench and he went to sleep. God said, that's truth. Truth takes action. Truth does what needs to be done. And truth don't make a whole lot of noise.
Woo.
I said, my God from heaven.
Mm.
Honey, from that day to this one, I know in, like Oliver says, deep down in my sha-na-na, I know that when I am operating in truth, I'm going to do exactly what needs to be done in truth. Oops.
That's me, y'all. Because none of the chat is coming up. So I
Oh,
know
wow.
people got stuff to say. None of the chat is coming up. But go ahead.
Yeah, truth takes action. Truth does what needs to be done, and truth doesn't make a whole lot of noise. And I can tell when I am operating in truth, I have a desire to just do what needs to be done. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't have to get your approval for it. Truth is a force all by itself. And when you're operating in truth, and when you operate, pay it, do this test. I call it like a litmus test for yourself. When you are operating, not 99% won't do. It has to be 100% of the truth, 100% of the truth of what God has told you to do, and watch how people respond. When you
Mm.
are operating 100% of the truth, people cannot say anything. They cannot go against it. They cannot stop it. They may change the subject. They may move on to something else. But when it is true, honey, you got to test it for yourself. Like I said, 99% won't do. It has to be 100% of the truth. You got to feel that thing spiritually, mentally, and physically. And you know that if I do not do this thing, it's going to destroy me. That's truth. Like the homeless guy, if I don't eat, it's going to destroy me. If I don't drink, it's going to destroy me. If I don't rest, it's going to destroy me. These are things that I need to do for me.
So, in other words, they were both trying to accomplish the same thing.
But one was doing it in truth, and the other one was just doing it just because he needed something to do. See, this is why the provision school is so important for me. The one homeless dude wanted the money, spare change for the homeless guy. The other one needed provision.
Y'all. So, provision school started last night.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Woo!
So, see,
My God, today.
this is why this subject right here is so important to me, because when you have shifted into a season where your ear is truly to God's lips, and you're really at a place where you have removed yourself from all the other noise, and you have to make sure you're so clear to what is being said by God, the smallest whisper to the most stern conversation. Now, there are sometimes God has been like, do it now with a stern voice, right? But then there are other times when he will speak very softly. And those are the times when you've got to be so clear in who you are and what it is that you're doing that you don't need a lot of the extra that will cause you to miss the very instructions that you need that's very pivotal for your next step. Because all of us are on a different part of the journey. Some of us are getting instructions where he may say, okay, if you go here, you're going to meet this person. She's going to have on a blue dress and she's going to say this. Okay, you get that. Then there's some of us that get up, go to the food line. And that's all you get. And you just got to go with those two things. And there's some of us who just get up. And you're figuring out, okay, now what's the rest? But until you move on the first thing, he's not going to give you the next thing. So all of us in a lot of different places when it comes to how God is speaking to us. But the main thing is when God speaks, are you listening to the instructions no matter how crazy they sound? Now, the average person will be like, well, why do I need to go to the park and go sit there and look at the homeless people? Most people would think, well, I got to go give them something, not to receive something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. God taught me a long time ago, I pity no one. I pity no one. God uses the most inconvenient. I think I failed to mention the time of the day that this was and that I work for a law firm. It was like 10:30 in the morning.
Wow. In the
And
middle of the busiest time of the day.
I'm like, are you kidding me? This is where you learn God is the creator of time. God is not bound by time. The people that are in authority over you, God is in authority over them. So if heaven gives you an instruction, this is why you have to be very clear that it is heaven speaking to you. Because when you are covered by heaven, heaven is going to make sure everything is in alignment. One day, that same job, homeless people, God speaks to me through drunk people, homeless people, numbers, and words. I will listen to a homeless person before I will listen to anyone that has credentials. When God began to help me to work on this journey, start on this journey, when God began to work with me with the circles and the cycles and the 12 hours for God and 12 hours for man, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and God said, get up and go walk. I'm in Georgetown. Where am I walking? God said, just get up. And I just started walking out the building. As I walked out of the building, God was like, go this way. To your point that God will just tell you to do certain things, I just started walking. Same canal. I'm now walking up like the cobblestone path up the hill. I don't know where I'm going. So I'm walking, and there's a homeless guy that passes me by. And we both turn around at the same time. I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. Like, it was just something when he passed me. It was just something about his presence. And he came back, and he said, I'm drawn to you.
Mm,
I was like, oh my God. And he said, sister, there's an anointing on your life. And I was like, okay. And he proceeded to draw two circles in the air.
mm,
And that was the time when God was dealing with me on the 12 hours for God, 12 hours for man. God was like, pay attention to the circles on earth as it is in heaven. For everything in the natural, there's a parallel and corresponding occurrence in the supernatural. You're operating in a God made progression or a man made progression. Everything that needs to move easily is attached to circular technology.
mm.
That man told my whole story right there. I can't tell you if I had been out there for 10 minutes or 10 hours. It was like the time was suspended. That man ministered to me. That conversation gave me the strength and the courage to continue on to do all of the crazy things that God was telling me because people did not understand. Because when I wanted to talk about the circles and the cycles, and I wanted to talk about the God made progression and the man made progression, I wanted to talk about all of these things and bridging the gap between heaven and earth. I need scripture and verse. I need to know where it is in the Bible. I need to, God said, you are in the Bible, and I will serve as your confirmation. That man freed me that day. And at the end of the conversation, he said, ma'am, based on my appearance, you would not know who I am.
Mm.
I said, no, I don't. He wrote his name down. He said, Google me.
No, he did.
Yes, he did. Up until this day, it's probably in my junk drawer in the kitchen, but I had that man's phone number and his email address and all of these things on my refrigerator because I could not believe what had happened. He was actually fighting for his daughter had been abducted or something. It was some political thing. It was something major. I was scared after I googled him. I was like, what
Wow.
just happened? And he was saying after all of the things that had happened and after all of the things he had endured, his spiritual life took on a life of its own.
Mm.
It was the wildest thing. I'm gonna see if I can find that piece of paper and find his name because that man, I googled him. I googled. I was like, oh my god, it was a political thing, and we're in D.C., so it wasn't that far
Mhm.
fetched to.
Mhm.
And he said, you never saw me. I was like, oh my gosh.
Mm.
I went back into my office. This is how you know God is in control. Girl, I had been gone for like 2.5 hours. I didn't know how long I've been gone. My coworker, as soon as I sat back down in my chair, that's when my boss came. She said, girl, I don't know how you did that, but she was like trying. I had left my phone. I had left everything. She was gonna call me. She was gonna check on me. She was like, girl, what's going on? Because she said, I don't want this man coming around here looking for you. Then I gotta lie and say something. I sat my little hind parts down right back in that chair, right on time.
Mm.
So when God sends you, you're protected.
Mm. Mm. Many of us, I'm sure, have the stories to share of the people that that have crossed our paths that we have never seen again. And one has come back to mind. This was a time that I was at work and I had been on a fast. And my fast was supposed to end at noon. And the Lord told me, no, not yet. You can't end it until this certain time. Now, mind you, I had been on what we call a total fast, meaning I had had nothing but water for 7 days. No, nothing but water for 7 days. So at this point, I'm done. I'm like, okay, we counting down to the last few minutes when it's time to. He said, no, not yet.
Mhm.
Up comes this lady. She introduced herself. She said that she was looking for a particular store. And it was one of those situations where you would come through Sears. I was working for Sears at the time. And it would let you out into the other parts of the mall. And that lady stopped and she talked to me. And I'm just like you. I don't know how long she talked to me. But she read me from up one side down the other in about 10, 15. I don't even know how long. I think it was 10 or 15 minutes. But all I know is that that woman read me up one side and down the other. Gave me her name and number. but I have never been able to find her since.
Yeah.
But that was what I need. He did not want me to end because he wanted to make sure that I had nothing in the way to get and to receive what it is that needed to be said to me as to the reason why I was fasting and praying.
Mhm.
And she came directly to me with the answer.
Mhm. Yep. And you have to, and a lot of times people miss opportunities to be comforted by heaven because the world has conditioned us poorly.
Oh, the
I ne-
world has jacked us up.
jacked us up. I never forget, I was on a train and I always, no matter where I'm going, what I'm doing, I always ask God where I need to be. Where do I need to sit? What do I need to do?
Mhm.
What do I need to order? How do I need to do this? God directs everything for me. So God, I got on the train. God was like, sit right here. And I wrote her name, this woman's name. It's in the one of the Bibles because I would have my Bible on the train. I said nothing to this woman. She sat next to me, and you could tell she was a sweet lady. Just her countenance, it was just so gentle. She literally leaned over, hugged me, and said, "Your marriage is gonna be okay." I didn't know this woman.
Woo!
And I just broke. I just started. I mean, I was like, what? She said, God is using you. Everything's going to be okay. She said, because see, I missed it. She said, I can tell. I knew I was supposed to sit here because I missed my opportunity. She said, I got divorced. I didn't want to hear from God. I didn't want to hear that God was going to save my marriage. I didn't want to hear that God was a God of forgiveness. I was so angry. And she said, but I am here because I need to encourage you. Everything's going to be okay. She knew all of that. Like that woman was used by God. I didn't say anything to this woman. So she was obviously on an assignment too. She said, I may have missed it. And she said, I miss my husband dearly. She said, but I made a promise to God that I'm not going to let anybody else miss it. I said, my
Ah,
God. I cried like a baby. I was, her name was Dorothy. Wait, what my, I get my, I ain't gonna go get it. Her name was Dorothy. It was Dorothy. I got it in my, I got her number. I was a mess. If I call that woman to, you remember that lady on the train that you sat there? Baby, yes, I remember you. Honey, that's some radical obedience right there.
you know it does. It was some years ago. We got a place called Second Charles, Second Chance. It's a place where you can go turn in your books and games and stuff like that and give you money. It's like a bookstore, like a second chance bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Like a So I was in there one day with my children. This is when they were, my son was in a lot of the games and stuff. And I was in there one day and this young lady was sitting in a chair crying,
Mm.
just bawling, crying. I could tell she didn't want to be there, but she was there with someone. And the Lord said, pray for her.
Mm.
Now, many people be like, oh, well, I don't want to make no scene. I just want to say some kind words. And the Lord said, go and pray for her. I didn't know what the situation was. It was that time to be obedient. I did what I was supposed to do, gave her my name, and left it alone. About 4 years later, she found me on Facebook to thank me for praying for her 4 years ago
My God.
because she had just lost her father
My God.
at that time.
My God.
And she needed the encouragement. So when we think about when God tells us to do stuff, sometimes we don't know what seeds we're sowing in people's lives. Just like the lady that was on the bus for you, that you needed the encouragement. How it, when we're being obedient, and how we may be sowing into somebody else's life. And some people we will never come back and say anything, and we will never see them. But we have to be willing to look what the world would consider to be foolish, walking up to a stranger and saying stuff to them and not knowing them. But only thing you can do is say, I'm gonna be obedient, whatever come out of my mouth comes out of my mouth. We have to make sure that we don't even filter ourselves into what God tells us to say.
Hmm. Heaven does its best work in the secret places. And this is why it does something to me when I just see people, especially with social media. We closed down the whole grocery store and we just blessed all of these people up in here. And you got cameras going. And I love the way the Bible is set up. A woman with the issue of blood.
Come on.
See, this
Come
was this
on.
was Etna May's youngest baby girl. That's who that was that had the man with leprosy. Like the names were left out because that's how loving God is.
Hmm.
The world turns everything upside down.
Hmm.
When when you are being obedient to God, there is such humility tied to the assignment. When
Hmm.
you're being obedient to God, when you are in alignment with heaven, you have a desire to disrespect no one. It's so humbling when you begin to really take hold of the character of God. And when you begin to take hold of the character of God, that is when, as Dr. Vicky says, you can really learn to live an unoffended life.
Come on again.
It's the character of God that we need to watch. How does God move? God is so loving. God is not a respecter of persons, but heaven loves everyone. And heaven loves each and every one of us to know that
Hmm.
we don't gain anything by being disrespected in front of people. There is
Hmm.
nothing about that. Was Jesus spoke to that so powerfully when he was in the garden just before he was getting ready to be crucified. And whoever cut the guard's ear off.
Peter.
Peter was a wild little fella. Anyway, cut the dude's ear off. Even
Hmm.
before Jesus was getting ready to take on the biggest assignment of his life. Like, man, you don't do this. You don't go around cutting people's ears off. Let me go and fix this. That ear was probably better than the one that he came with. After Jesus, can you take this
Exactly.
one off too and just put it back on? Because I can hear better out of this one than I can the other one.
Mhm.
When you are on assignment, you don't have to damage anyone.
You don't.
You do not have to damage anyone. You don't have to compete with anyone. You don't. This is how I can tell when people in the world are the hustle and the grinders and all of these things and the competition, and you got to look out for your enemies and you got to do this. I'm sorry, that is not of God.
Mm-mm.
That is not of God. Because when you're operating in God's economy, there is enough for everyone.
Mhm.
People get offended because they think people are getting more than them. People get offended because people think that you've taken something that belongs to them. But when you're operating in God's economy, you don't have to be offended because when you
Mhm.
listen to God,
He considers all things.
all things.
He considers all things. And you are so correct. God takes in consideration what you have and what you don't have, and all parties included.
Say it again, like you say for the people in the back. Say it again.
God considers all things, what you have, what you don't have, and all parties included.
All,
He leaves nothing out,
all parties included.
all parties included. So he knows exactly how you should position yourself, when to speak, when not to speak, when to give, when not to give. That's why he said, "What you do in secret, I will reward you openly." Because a lot of people think that the reward that you get openly is the announcement that you did the thing. That ain't
That's
it.
not it. That is
That
oh,
ain't it.
that's a class
That's
all
not it.
by
It's not
itself.
the announcement that you did the thing. It's the fact that what he rewards you with openly is your own personal private desire that he blesses you with out of your obedience because you took care of something that he called you to do for him. So that's where the provision part comes in. Because in that space of lack that you have, he provides for that so that you don't experience any lack because you sold into somebody else.
My God.
That's the part that he rewards you openly.
My God.
When you look around and you needed somebody to fix your car, or you needed taxes paid, or you needed another job, or you needed a connection, he orchestrates that behind the scenes because you were obedient enough to go pay sister so and so's bill, who was a single parent, who he told you to go take care of, and shut your mouth and not tell nobody about it.
My God.
Or when you were in the grocery store and the person that was in front of you, he said, pull out your card and swipe it. Don't even consider how much it is. I got you.
See, see, that's enough. I know we almost out of time, but see, that's one right there. You know it's God. Mm. See, God is going to hit you where it hurts, like where you need to grow. For me to say that I have earmarked $5,000 to give to the homeless, we have earmarked this amount to distribute this here, baby, that's not God. That's you doing your charitable contribution. See, God is going to hit you in a place where everybody grows. See, when you in that grocery store line, y'all know that. Well, I shared this story. When you in that grocery store line and you have budgeted out your money because you know you don't get paid for another 2 days, the 15th and the last day of the month, and it is the 13th. You got
And
bills
the
to
car
pay,
is almost on E.
and you got to put gas in the car. The kids need lunch money. You got and God and you in line, and God says pay for their food too. Surely this is not of God. See, it's easy to give when it is from your reserve.
Comfortable. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure, you can have this coat. I just bought a new one. Sure, you can have this car. I have three. Sure, you can have this, honey. When it don't hurt, it ain't God. And when I say hurt, it's going to make you think spiritually. Heaven is not going to do anything without requiring all of you. See, a lot of times people give so so callously and so carelessly that they don't even realize they've given. God gonna let you know that you gave.
He will always call on your Isaac.
Preach.
He gonna come for your Isaac.
Oh my God. That's just
That thing that you love the
that's
most,
just
that thing that you waited on for a long time, he gonna call your Isaac. And he gonna say, are you gonna sacrifice that for me? Because
all
God wants to make sure that he still has your heart.
all the time.
And whoever has your ear has your heart.
All the time. That that story when see God, see when you mm, when I started to ask God, God, I want to, like when God teaches you a lesson, God is going to help you to be a demonstration of what that thing is. And when God started to work with me about the power of the question,
Come on. We just gonna have to go over just a little bit. Go on, hit this power with a question because we can't leave the people
the
hanging
power
tonight.
of the
We're gonna take them.
question, when God began to deal with me, God said, you are in so many situations that you're in because you did not wait for the question. God said that's encoded in the process. Asking it will be given unto you. Seeking you shall find. Knocking the door will be open. You do not have to do anything without a question. God said that's law. Like that's real. I said, okay, really? God said, test me on this. God said, you can always tell it's me because I do things decently and in order, and I do everything with a question. Honey, I'm driving home that day and I'm at that stoplight and my windows cracked. I'm off of what, Benning Road over there. Like in the, I was like, I don't keep my windows down on that side of town. I was like, okay. The window was cracked that much. I get to the stoplight. Normally I'm at the very beginning or I'm at the back. I'm right in the middle. The light was not changing. I see this cute little family on the side. I said, okay, like three little boys, a mom, a dad. The guy walks up to my window cracked this much. Ma'am, may I ask you a question? I said, good God from heaven. Because see, mostly they say, you got any, you got some change. Can I get some? He said, he prefaced that. God said, that's me. He said, may I ask you a question? I said, oh. That light would not change, Errica.
You couldn't get away if you wanted
I
to.
couldn't. The light would not change. And I said, yeah, what's your question? And he explained the situation. He said, can you help us out? I said, Lord. I said, come on, like change, like change. And I was like, well, I would, but there's no ATM over here. I don't have any money. And as soon as God said it, he said it. God said it's one in that service station. And the guy said, it's one in the gas station.
He
I
ain't
said,
gonna let
oh.
you go. He ain't gonna let you go. Uh-uh.
And God was like, oh, I can hold this light. I said, oh, as soon as I turned into the gas station, the light changed. I'm in the gas station. I parked. I'm getting my little ATM card out. I'm going to go in. I knew what number God told me. God said, take this much out. Surely this is not of God. Every denomination I tried less than that amount would not go through. The machine would not dispense. And as soon as I put in I said, like my dad, I bet Joe Brown. I gave him the money. Okay, so I've done my Christian duty. Oh, God bless you. Good luck to your family. You know how we always say this, right? If you need anything, you just let me know. How you gonna let me know? He ain't got my number. He ain't got nothing. So God said, give him your number. I said, I said, I'll take his number and I'll check on him later. God said, you put it in his cell phone. Then the dude, he said, I got my cell phone here. If you give me your number, I'll call you and we'll have each other's number. I said, I bet Joe Brown. God had me with that family for 7 days. And we can go through that whole story later, but the power of the question, and I am convinced that that situation back then saved my situation down the road. Like that, it you cannot be obedient to God without being rewarded later. But
He will do it.
you don't get to determine when the reward comes though. That's the problem. And you don't get to determine how it comes
You do
and
not.
who it comes from.
Exactly. And I believe some people have forfeited their reward because it had come the way they thought it should have.
I helped them. I helped them, and now I need something from them. It ain't supposed to come from them.
You don't always get it back from the people that you gave it
And you
to.
don't always get it back in the way that you gave it.
Exactly. You just got to know that you needed to have been obedient. And I know the subject was, and y'all, the time is up.
I know. This is
Don't
good.
be offended because I listen to God and not you. This is the thing. As we go through our journey, there's some major decisions that we have made and some things that we have done that people thought that we should have done it a different way. But God said, no, I need you to do it this way. Why are you doing it that way? Because that's how God told me to do it. Because we got to understand there are reasons. God is very intentional in everything he does. He does nothing haphazard. He sees far in the
And
distance.
I don't care if
So
it's your spouse.
now you just got somebody mad. Go on and
M-
say that again.
my husband, that whole process, God was like, don't worry about your marriage. It's going to be okay. When I couldn't even tell Mike anymore what I was doing. I was paying for hotel rooms at like the Marriott. I was paying for cabs. I was paying for dinner. I was doing all of these things, and our mortgage was due. Mr. Johnson was hot with me. Decisions must be made when you become radically obedient to God. And see, this is where a lot of people mix it up because in the natural, it looked like I was being, was it insubordinate? Like I was being disrespectful to my husband. Like it looked bad. But God was like, it's going to be okay. You cannot always listen to the world because see, if I had started to listen to the world in the capacity that people talk about marriage and all of that, I would have been out of order. What did your husband said don't do it. So you are being disrespectful. You are. But see what God began to show me, God said, when Mike is in alignment. See, Mike wasn't in alignment at the time. And this is why this is a whole nother ballpark. This is why it's so important for the family structure to be in alignment so that the confusion is diminished.
Yes, ma'am.
It was so confusing in the worldly sense, but when I was doing what God was telling me to do, I was at so much peace. But people were offended because I was doing what God told me to do, but because people are so traditional and so rigid and failing to realize that God is a God of decency, God is a God of order. If your spouse is out of order, then you have got to make adjustments. Now that Mr. Johnson, we are in order, huh? I'm like, whatever Mike say do, that's what we doing. Because I know that Mike has a heart for God. I know that Mike is doing the right thing now. But so many people miss opportunities because the family unit is out of order. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there. I just had to.
No, honey, we needed that. We can't. We got to give people all of what they need because see, this is a situation when we done committed, we done had surgery. Now we got to sew them back up.
We got so we can't
Yes,
we
we
can't
can't just
leave
leave
them.
them. We can't just leave them open. We got to sew them back up and make sure they heal right. We got to sew them back up. So no, no. I thank God for it because I'm gonna tell you something. Alignment is so important. We don't talk about alignment enough
Mm-mm.
and how to truly be aligned with God.
And see, this shoot. Okay, so that alignment piece, see, it's one thing to read the Bible, but it's another thing to live the Bible.
Come on now.
When you become a living epistle, when you begin to walk this thing out, honey, God put so much depth into that thing. Like it's easy to read the Bible and to check the things off and to say you gonna, but see when you're walking it out, see, this is why I want everyone to be a living epistle. I don't want you to tell me what you read in the Bible and then you follow in the Bible. I want you to live. See, this is how God, this is when God began to show me. God was like, you are the Bible. And see, I would start writing down all of the things that God was telling me and all of the circumstances and all of those things that God said, now you take this and go find it in the Bible. See, we want to take the Bible and then apply it to us. God was like, be the Bible and then go confirm what you have done. See, I am a living confirmation. See, when God take, that's how I know. That's how I know that when God orders your step, you use the Bible as confirmation that you have indeed heard from the Lord.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I don't even know what to say.
Girl, this one got me go, honey. I gotta. What's the next? What's tomorrow's forgiveness? I'm like, this is. I'm like, stuff is rising up. I don't know what's going.
All
Ooh.
I can say is this. So I would definitely tell you what needs to the discussion next week is going to be about alignment.
Okay, I'm ready, girl. You know I'm ready.
It's all about alignment because this is the thing. We're in a time and a space right now where you have got to be aligned in the spirit in order to receive, understand, produce,
My God,
and endure
that
all that is about to come forth. And everybody wants to talk about the great wealth transfer and all this kind of stuff. But if you're not postured properly in the spirit,
honey,
the
it's gonna.
transfer is going to miss you completely. And see, the wealth transfer is not just about the dollar.
Who that now that one, girl. Mm.
And the wealth transfer is not just about the dollar. It's about the wisdom
Oh,
that
all right.
creates the wealth. And there's a transfer when it comes to the anointed and to understand the mind of God. Because he said in his last days, I'm going to pour out my spirit. You've got to be in a proper place to receive the pouring. But the thing about it also, this just dropped in my spirit and I got to say it. Some of us got so much junk in our vessel that we don't even have enough room to receive the pouring.
My God.
And we still got to get some of this stuff up out of us.
Mm.
The spirit of religion, the lies we still tell, the hypocrisy, the unforgiveness, all of this other mess that we've been dibbling and dabbling in for the longest. But now it is time. If you're going to be a pure, empty vessel, be that.
My God.
So that God can use you truly as a conduit for the blessing
Mm-hmm.
in this season.
Mm-hmm. 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 And see, when you are being used by God, you don't get to turn it off. You don't get to pick and choose. You don't get to say how much you gonna give, when you gonna give, how you gonna give, where the blessings are coming. See, people think they know too much. Never, ever, ever, ever think that you have figured God out. Never, ever, ever, ever.
God has a way how to politely make you look real crazy like you thought you knew me.
Mm-hmm.
But let me show you another side of my glory that you don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, girl, you evolve and elevate, honey. We are evolving and elevating all at the same time. So I am ready. Next Monday, I am here. My God.
So look, y'all, all the people that I said, all of y'all that's on here, invite someone. We're talking about alignment next week. I hope it was as good for you as it was for us, because God is up to something very, very good. I can't even see the chat out, and I wasn't even supposed to see it tonight because we had to go back and read the comments and stuff later because God wanted us to just be into this conversation and not even look at what the chat was saying. So I would say this: if you have any testimonies, share them. I'd appreciate if you would share how Evolve and Elevate has been a blessing to you. Um, because I know that in this season, God has called me to do this. And I don't know exactly where it's going, but I know that it's definitely going somewhere. So I appreciate you all being with us on this journey because we are evolving and we're elevating in the things of God. And we're
Amen.
evolving and we're elevating in the things of the kingdom
Amen.
because it's a kingdom assignment. So
Amen.
I love you all. I thank you all for joining us. Make sure you tag, you share, you like, you subscribe. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so that we can get this word out. And join us next week. And as always, Alicia, I thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. And we look forward to seeing you all on next Monday. You all take care.